So everything has led up to this very point. Today we are talking about the series finale of Devs, breaking down the finale, favorite moments, the overall thoughts of the season. Got some special announcements to talk about in this video. We're talking about that and much more. Episode 8 of Devs. Lily arrives for her final confrontation with Forrest and Katie. Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Movie Files. Elliot here with my final review recap breakdown of the series finale of Devs. Very excited to talk about this episode. We are going to dive deep into it, but before we do so, as you can see on the screen now, make sure you're subscribed to this channel. Hit that bell so you don't miss any of my new content. Make sure you're following me on all my other social media accounts. Give this video a thumbs up. Really helps out the channel, and I also really appreciate it. And as you all have been doing for the last 8 weeks, make sure you leave your thoughts in the comments below. What are you feeling right now after watching this finale? What are your thoughts, your theories, all that stuff in the comments below. Talk about the ending, all that fun stuff. Let's talk about it in the comments, guys. So before I dive into my thoughts, just a couple things I want to address up top. Number one, big announcement. I will be doing, this won't be the last Devs review recap breakdown, but we will be having a watch along. So this Saturday, April 18th at 7 p.m. Central Time, I can announce now that I have 2 special guests that are on YouTube that have been reviewing this show every week like I have. Those guests are One Take, Gil from One Take, and Perp Minded. We will be talking about the show. We will be watching it live with you all. So join the conversation, get into the chat. Let's watch this finale together as a community and let's have a fun time. So again, that's Saturday. And then for my movie fans, I will have another watch along Friday, April 17th, for one of my favorite horror films this past decade, 2013's The Conjuring. So I'll be watching that with you all this Friday. So a couple of announcements there. Also, another thing I want to just kind of address up top, and just I'm going to say this at the end too, but I just want to say it up top as well. The last 8 weeks has been such an incredible experience for me in regards to watching the show. Number one, it takes my mind off of all the stuff that's going on outside, in the real world, which has been great. Watching the show, diving deep into the characters and the stories and the theories has been fun. But it's also been an honor and a privilege to review these shows, to review this show with you all every week. The comments, the likes, the shares, the groups I'm in, the discussions I've had has been an incredible experience. This show has been up there with me as far as just being such a fun experience with this. Ozark Season 3, The Outsider. It's just been such a fantastic experience, and I can't thank you all enough for the continued support. And like I said, join us this Saturday, 7 p.m. Central Time, to watch the season finale with you all as a community. So want to thank you all. So let's get into it, guys. We're going to just recap the episode. I'm going to talk about my thoughts, my theories, the ending, the meaning of certain things. We're going to break it all down. So hopefully this video isn't too long, but again, I thank you all for watching it. So starting off with the recap. Episode 8 starts off with a shot of what looks to be the capsule that we've been seeing all season, from people getting from point A to point B, which is the Devs system. So we see that is broken. We see shots of Jamie, Lily, Forrest, Maya playing around, which is key. We'll talk about that scene in a bit. Another incredible monologue from Stewart. And we got to talk about Stewart. I'm going to break down the characters at the end, but the character Steven, the actor Steven, has been such a awesome character in this show for me, and I love all his monologues, and I love the opening monologue that we get with him, and it just really kind of sets the tone for this episode. And we'll talk about the tone, and we'll talk about the themes. We'll talk about Alex Garland at the end of this video, but I just love that opening there. So from there, we see Lily walking through Devs. And I'm saying Devs right now. We'll talk about the real meaning and the real name of Devs in a little bit, but I'm going to call it Devs for now. But we see her walking through Devs, and she comes across, a slightly open door. And this is where this show really just takes it to another level for me. One of the reasons I love this show, number one, I'm a big fan of sci-fi. I'm a big fan of Alex Garland and a lot of the people involved. But, I watch action shows. I watch horror shows. And it has that element of, entertainment factor. You see things exploding. You see scary things. You get these emotions out of you that invokes entertainment, right? But when you have a show like this that has certain moments of entertainment aspects, action scenes, like the scene where Lily and Kenton was in the car and they had the car accident, all that stuff is fun. But as far as this show, one of the most fascinating things to me, the most entertaining thing about this show for me is the conversations. So we see Lily walk into the Dev simulation room, and she has a conversation with Forrest. And within this conversation, there's many things that are talked about, but one of the first things that stood out to me was the line in which Forrest tells her, Lily's like, you taking everything from me. I don't even know who I am. I don't even know what I'm saying at this point. It's been all predetermined. She's, saying all that. But then there's a line that Forrest says to her that just really just kind of just puts the show in another realm for me, as far as it's a thought-provoking show. It makes you think. It makes you have discussions and conversations. And I love when things do that. And I love when Alex Garland does that. Ex Machina, which we'll talk about, Annihilation. But Forrest says to her, I haven't taken anything from you because you were never... they were never given to you. You're thinking you can participate in life as things which we watch simply just unfold. Just hit me to the core. Because I have, and not to get too inside my beliefs and your beliefs, you don't have to get into it in the comments, but it's just that conversation, right? In regards to life and in regards to things being predetermined, things meant to happen. We've all experienced this loss. We have moments where we're like, man, I wish I would have passed this test. I wish I would have said that at the job interview. I wish I would have said that to that particular person that I was interested in at that time. I wish that person didn't pass away. We have those conversations. And Forrest says to her, it's like pictures on a screen. And as he says that, the camera kind of pans to the simulation, the big screen that they have there. And it's just, again, the show takes it there. It's thought-provoking. It's detailed. It's meticulous. And I just love that aspect of the show. And I love the conversations that we have within this show. Again, I love my action. I love my horror. And I love my sci-fi. And all those things, visually speaking, simulating to the mind. And it's very entertaining. But when you give me a show like this that has fascinating characters and fantastic actors having a conversation, it's just as entertaining as anything else. So I love that moment there. We see the conversation continues to unfold between the two as Forrest explains the data and all the data that he's accumulated. And Lily's like, this is impossible. And that Amaya is a simulation. Which again, Forrest replies again, well, isn't life a simulation? Again, it's just like the thought things. Because again, this is just me. And I think we've all had this. Again, regardless of your religious beliefs, science versus religion, this, that, and the other. I've had moments where it's just like, is things just meant to be? Are we repeating life? Have we lived this life before? What is deja vu? Why do we have deja vu? It's just these questions. As I'm watching this show, I'm just thinking in my head and processing all this information like a computer, right? Like a simulation. It's just fantastic conversation, fantastic debates. I just love these conversations. So we see that there. Again, he replies to her, and we see Lily taking the gun that Kenton killed Jamie with, and he points it to her, and they break into conversation, about life and about predetermination and being deterministic as Kenton or as Forrest and Katie have been. Again, just a fantastic scene for me, and it's so much in that moment. And again, when I do my watch on this Saturday, these are conversations we're gonna be having this Saturday with Perp Minded and Gil from One Take. So just loving this scene and just loving everything so far in this episode. So within this conversation, we see Lily asks Forrest, what happens to the point where you tell me, you and Katie tell me that there's a certain point that you can't see the future, you can't predict the future. What exactly happens? Don't tell me it, show me it. So we see Lily sitting down next to Forrest, and we see how everything plays out. We see Lily puts the gun to Forrest. They walk out of the simulation room. They see Katie. She says her lines, that even though I've seen this play out, it still is, sad, and I don't want this to happen. They walk into the console or the capsule, and Lily, they have a little bit of a conversation, her and Lily, or Lily and Forrest, and she says, he says that he's, the thing about messiahs is they resurrect, which we'll talk about that towards the end of this video. But he says that, and Lily, he asks her just to do it. And we see the scene play out. We see Lily shoots him in the head, and in doing so, the bullet breaks the capsule, and it's the oxygen comes out, and they drop to their death. And we see the exact same simulation that we saw in episode 5 or 6, where we see Lily crawling on the ground. It all plays out because at the base level of the DEVS department, there's no oxygen there. So we see that Forrest is dead and Lily's dead, and Lily sees that. And we see, Lily, talking to Forrest and, about what just played out. And he asks her, why did you pull the trigger? And Lily tells him it's for Jamie. And I was very surprised at that moment because I thought it was going to be like, it's for Jamie and for Sergei. But I think at this point, Lily has already come to amends with, and I noted that in my episode 7 or 6 review, where she's put Sergei aside. It's sad, it hurts her, and it's going to always probably be a special spot in her heart as far as Sergei goes. But at the end of the day, she didn't know Sergei. He was a spy. She didn't know that about him, which is another thing I thought was going to play a little bit more of a pivotal part in this season, which it did. We saw how the spy aspect played out in the first half of the season. And we'll talk about that towards the end in regards to just the season as a whole. But she didn't really know Sergei, so it was for Jamie, as she tells Forrest there. And the question that we have is at that moment, Forrest tells her, we only have a few minutes to live, and that's something that I think we can all relate to this, right? If we were told when, why, where we all pass away, that's a question that we would all might ask. And I just love, again, the conversations, the detail, the thought-provoking moments within that show in regards to that moment. She knows that everything's going to play out the way it is. There's no changing the future until this very moment happens. So we see Forrest tells her, and this is the really fun part for me, being an Alex Garland fan. Forrest tells her that the real name of the project is not DEVS, but the V is Roman, and it is Deus. It is a little private joke, but for all of those fans of Alex Garland like myself, this project is literally called Deus, also known, and I did some little research, the Latin word for God, and that is, and also an Easter egg for us Alex Garland's fans for Ex Machina, Deus Ex Machina, which again, I'm gonna have you guys, you can explore that nugget and dive into that rabbit hole like I did, for you can be fascinated by that little Easter egg there. So again, it's not DEVS, it is Deus. So very interesting moment there. Again, I like the little joke, but I also like the Easter egg, and I also like the meaning behind that. Deus in regards to God and Messiah and the resurrection and the conversations that we're continuing to have. So we see the moment play out as it was projected to a certain extent. The time comes when Lily throws, they walk up to the capsule. Katie says her lines, Forrest says his lines, Lily says her lines. They walk into the capsule, and as the capsule's closing, big moment here, guys. Lily makes a choice. She throws the gun out of the capsule, which is just groundbreaking, a big moment for me because, again, it just goes into the whole conversation. You see these two people, you see Katie and Forrest. Everything is predetermined. There's the trim lines. Everything is meant to happen. If you don't go too far out of the trim lines, you don't play out, you don't, go too far off the script per se, then everything's going to play out exactly. But Lily, she's special. She makes her own choices. She's a messiah, or is she? She's more like us, and we'll talk about that here in a bit. But she makes a decision to throw the gun out. We see one of my favorite characters, Stuart, tells Katie, Stuart takes, plays around with the little machine there, and we see, Katie or Lily, before everything kind of plays out, she says, she tells him messiahs are false prophets. We see Stuart drops them, and we see them both fall to their death. Lack of oxygen. We see Lily, we see Forrest, they die. Katie sees this, and Stuart tells Katie, she asks him, why did you do that? And Stuart says, I had to stop this. You can't blame me because it was predetermined. Again, I love the Stuart character. I love that moment there. Again, pivotal, big moment. Because I know there's been some people that haven't been the biggest fan of Lily and the performance. I have. That's not me personally, but I've read some of the comments. But I think this is a huge moment for Lily and a huge moment to explain her character. This goes back to the conversation she had with her dad at the hospital bed, in his dying bed. This goes back to the conversation that she had, with Jamie. It's just, again, it all comes full circle with the Lily character, and it's just a fascinating character, and it's such a great performance, and we'll talk about the performance at the end here, but just such a huge moment, such a jaw-dropping moment for me personally, and I love that moment there. So we see the next moment kind of play out. As the screen goes black, we get like a distortion. We get a moment where where we see now Forrest come into the simulation, which they had a quick scene of that in this episode, but now they go more into depth. We see Forrest is now in the simulation, and then Katie says that Lily made a choice and she committed the original sin, which is disobedience, and we'll talk about that here and that. And then they, Katie and Forrest says, well, this is Deus. So we see for the first time, Forrest states, he wants to go back to them, acknowledging his wife for the first time, at least that I can remember in this season, acknowledging that he misses his wife as well as Amaya. But he says that. and we see him descend to what I would imagine was at that moment when I'm watching the episode. I'm like, oh, okay, he's descending to the simulation. At first, I'm like, okay, maybe he's going off to make maybe another multiverse, but no, that wasn't the case. He's now in the simulation, and we'll talk about that here in a bit here. So, as that happens, we see him, go back to that moment, and at that moment we get that fantastic tribal score that's just playing in the background. And as I'm watching this moment, I'm just like literally sitting here just like jaw on the ground as that, like I said, that tribal music. The score in this show has been fantastic. But we see Lily is shocked, and Lily wakes up to Sergei alive and asks him, is it a bad dream? And at this moment, I'm not gonna lie, guys, I'm like, are you kidding me? This was all a dream. I'm thinking in my head, there's many shows and movies that have the whole it's a dream concept, and some of it works, some of it doesn't. So at that moment, I'm like, I hope this is not a cop out. I hope they explain it more. At that point, I think we had like 15 more minutes in the episode. I'm like, I really hope they give me a little bit more explanation other than in saying that it's a dream. So, and they do give me an explanation, and I like that they did that, because I would have been a little upset if they just would have left it at it was all a dream. It was just an experiment, and it was all fake. But we see Lily and Sergei essentially play out the same events that we get from episode 1. We see Lily sees Forrest kind of come up in her car and see what he's doing, and she's like, oh, this is Forrest's doing. We see Forrest playing with Amaya. We see him with his wife. In the scene where we saw earlier throughout the seasons, they showed those little montages of Amaya in this kind of and there the devs are playing around with her dad and her mom. So we've seen the little Easter eggs and little crumbs that we got throughout the episode or the season. Like it was somewhat dreamlike sequences that we saw throughout the season. So we see Forrest and Lily have a great conversation yet again. They're in the Deus system. They're in the afterlife. They're in heaven, I guess you might say. For some people might consider it that. They're in paradise. They're in the real world. They're like real life sim players, right? They're living a simulation. They are the only ones that know this simulation. They're the only ones that know what really happened, that they're dead, and that these other people aren't really necessarily real per se. But the data that Katie put into the system after the death of Forrest and Lily is what's playing out in the simulation. So, and we see them talk about there's different variations of this moment. Like there's a moment where they're in paradise that we see on the screen, but there's also a moment where they're in hell, and things are a little bit different in a harder life that they have to live, which is another fascinating conversation in regards to what happens to us when we die, right? Do we go to a heaven like, and again, not getting too religious and not bringing in my religious beliefs, but do we go to heaven? Do we go to a paradise? Do we relive our lives? Do we go to a hell or a version of hell or a more harder version of living life? So fascinating moment. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Again, we don't have to get too religious. We don't have to get into your beliefs, but just in the confines of the show, what did you guys think about that moment? So we see the return of the senator. We see her talking to Katie, and Katie's obviously upset. She lost the person that she loved in Forrest, and she tells the senator, and the senator asks her, does anyone else know about this? She says, no, but all I ask is that you continue to fund this Deus project. In doing so, Katie can see Forrest living out the rest of his life, and Lily living out the rest of her life. So really great moment for Katie there. Emotional moment for Katie as well, and we'll talk about that in a bit. So we see Lily finds she has her moment with Sergei too. Let me rewind a little bit. She's back with Sergei. She asks to see his phone. She puts the Sudoku app, and he's all like, "What are you looking through my phone? This is an important day to me." And at that point, I already knew that Sergei, it was nice knowing you, buddy, but she's going back to Jamie, my man, the person, the ultimate friend zone character for most of the season, but he had his moment with Lily in episode 7, the back half of 6 and the 7 before he died. And then we see Lily, she finds Jamie, and that's the moment I felt like just so happy for them two. They hug each other. And we essentially get a happy ever after moment there, which again, I thought that was just a great moment to end the show. And the title card says Deus. So again, before I kind of dive into some more things, guys, let me know your thoughts of the episode. Let me know, did you like that ending? Did you want to see more? Did you theorize something differently? Or again, are you happy with the end result? I know when it comes to shows like this, that has just been so fascinating for 8 weeks. So I know some people might not be happy with the ending. I personally enjoyed it. I love this season. I love this finale. But I know sometimes people look at things like they didn't stick the landing, so it kind of erases everything prior to that. But for me, this as a package was a complete package. I enjoyed it. I loved it. I love how everything played out. There are some questions that I do have that we're going to talk about here in a bit. But like I said, let me know your thoughts on the ending, on the episode. And also, we're going to get into the season here too. So, Forrest really had made a godlike machine, right? Biggest kind of topics, biggest things I took away from this episode is, again, Lily. She made a choice. Forrest and Katie were so firm believers that the destiny cannot be changed. They were so stuck on determinism, things being predetermined, and nothing can change that. Forrest even tells Lily the terms of the situation up to that moment before everything kind of plays out. So huge moment for Katie and also Forrest to realize you can make a choice. You can change the future. You can change things from happening. Things aren't predetermined. We're not watching a series of pictures happening out in front of us. At least that's what the show is saying. So love that moment. Another big key thing was, what happens to messiahs, right? So we simply put, when it comes to Lily, she's not a god. She's not a messiah. She's us initially, guys. She is, as they say, she made the first original sin. She disobeyed, the order or the predetermined situation that was happening. Lily's not a god. She's special, but in reality, she's us. Because when you think about it, she's just like me and you. When it comes to someone telling us that we're told to do something, the human nature of us comes out and we disobey rules. That's just human nature in all of us. Going back to getting to the religious aspect of the show, Adam and Eve, they were given a choice and they made their choice to do what they did. And then we know how that played out in that particular story. So questions. One of the biggest things I guess I had was in regards to, one of the big question was in regards to their consciousness going into the Deus program. How did they set that up? I guess, I'm going to rewatch the episode and obviously talk about it with my guest on Saturday. But I guess that was one of the biggest things, like how did they set that particular up? I know they had the whole thing with the rat and the project, and I guess maybe that's what played out. We didn't see that on screen, but I guess that's how, their consciousness was able to go into simulation, because they took their bodies and put it on the machine and they were able to go into their simulation. So that's what I think, but let me know you guys' thoughts in the comments below. And we also know that Lyndon's, theory that he had mentioned in regards to the multiple timelines played a big factor. Again, Lyndon was a character that I really enjoyed. And one of the last things is, what is next? We know this is a series finale for the show. There won't be any more episodes or any seasons, but this is something that Alex Garland can maybe explore in another film, another TV show in regards to this particular subject matter. But wrapping it up here, guys, in regards to my thoughts of the season, again, I thought that the 8 episodes were fantastic. I love that Alex Garland not only directed every episode, but he wrote every episode. And I think that goes into the consistency of this season. I watch a lot of TV. I love a lot of TV. I have some of my favorite moments of watching TV is watching, different characters pop in and out, different storylines, different creators involved. But I love that Alex Garland had a grip on this show in its entirety, and I think that goes to the consistency of how I enjoyed the show. The first half of the season was more of the kind of spy, espionage, thriller, mystery, murder mystery aspect, but as the show kind of unfolded, more sci-fi, more thought-provoking comments and commentary, and more of the sci-fi elements. I love how those two stories kind of blended in together and made it more about a human story and thought-provoking thought. So I love that aspect. Performances across the board from our characters, Lily, Forrest, Kenton, I thought was fantastic. Stuart, Lyndon, Katie on down, Sergei, Jamie, all the actors were fantastic. If I were to have my favorite characters, and not in any particular order, but I would definitely say Forrest, Stuart, Lyndon, Jamie, all are kind of like my MVPs. If we can split the MVP trophy into 4 people, I would give it to them. But again, I thought Lily was fantastic. I enjoyed her journey. She was the audience members. I enjoyed Kenton, like I mentioned. Kenton was just the bull in the china shop, just a force to be reckoned with. Again, we didn't spend that much time with Sergei, but I enjoyed his performance. But then my two favorite groupings of people were Stuart and Lyndon. I loved their back and forth and the conversations they had and how pivotal they were to the story, as well as our boy Pete, who came in clutch to help Lily, and kill Kenton. So performances across the board was great, but I can't leave this video without mentioning the MVP of the show, the man, the myth, the legend, Alex Garland. Again, the consistency, writing every episode, directing every episode, touching on the human story element, touching on the sci-fi elements, asking those questions that we all think about, life after death, or death after life, or whatever I'm trying to say. What happens to you when you die? Life being predetermined, watching a series of pictures unfold in front of you. You don't have a choice. You do have a choice. All those conversations were so fantastic. And this is why Alex Garland is one of my favorite directors in Hollywood. He's in the same realm with a Denis Villeneuve, Christopher Nolan, in regards to just character or directors that bring you those questions. A Jordan Peele in the horror realm, or Ari Aster in the horror realm, and all of my other favorite directors that those are just some that come to mind. But Alex Garland's right in that pile for me personally, and I can't wait to see what he does next, whether it be a show, whether it be a movie. He's just such a fantastic director, and I look forward to his future continue to grow. This makes me want to watch more Alex Garland films this weekend, or I've seen them all, but I'm going to watch Ex Machina again. I'm going to watch Annihilation, which I watched actually a couple weeks ago, but such a fan of his, and I thought he did a fantastic job. So again, guys, that's my thoughts, that's my comments, my review, recap, breakdown, and everything like that. I've had a blast talking about the show with you all for the last 8 weeks. It's been fantastic interacting with you all, meeting you all. Again, this Friday, we have a watch along for a movie, The Conjuring. Check that out. Make sure you join the chat. Have some fun times there. But Saturday, 7 p.m. Central Time, the 18th, I will be joined with Perp Minded and Gil from One Take. We're going to be doing a live watch along, interacting with you all, breaking it all down. So definitely join me this Saturday to watch this season finale, series finale of Devs. So again, guys, thanks for watching this review. Like, share, comment, subscribe, hit that bell so you don't miss any of my new content. Make sure you follow me on all my other social media accounts. Check out my content that's currently on my channel. Reviews for Mrs. America. Did some movies that I missed earlier this year and last year, from Code 8 to Color Out of Space, and a lot more things coming to you guys. Again, a watch along Friday, Saturday. Got a big watch along coming up next week. So hit that bell, check my community tabs. I always let you all know what's coming soon. So if you're a big fan of mine, you can see what I got coming up if you click the community tab on the home screen of my YouTube channel. So again, guys, thank you for watching this review, and we'll see you pretty soon.